Hello everybody, and welcome to Children's Time on the Steps during this Easter season. With every Children's Time on the Steps during Easter, we're going on location to retell a story of Jesus appearing to his followers after the resurrection. So today we're here by the Sea of Galilee, and we're recounting a story from the Gospel of John, chapter 21. While you're listening to this Children's Time, there are going to be pictures from the actual Sea of Galilee that church member Sandy Spicknell took. So you'll actually get to see what the place where Jesus met the disciples was like. We've talked about this before. The disciples were really scared and confused after Jesus died, and they heard that he was alive again or resurrected. And so they went in a lot of different directions. We've been in rooms with locked doors. We've been along a road to Emmaus. Today we find the disciples have come back to the Sea of Galilee. And they've gone back to fishing. And that's important to remember. They went back to something they were really good at. They went back to a place that they were familiar with, and they got back together. So they decided not to be alone. And while they're out fishing, it's actually not going well. Jesus is on the shore and he calls out to them. And he says, "Hey, why don't you cast your net on the other side of the boat?" Do you remember that from a story we heard in Pathways earlier this year? When Jesus first met the disciples, he told them to cast your nets. And in both times, they caught a big net of fish. And when they did that, they recognized Jesus and they drug the fish ashore. And began talking with Jesus. And that's where we're going to stop in the Gospel of John, chapter 21. But what I think we can learn from this story is that when the disciples were scared and when things were unfamiliar, they went back to doing something that was familiar. And this is a really unfamiliar time for us right now. You're probably not going to school the way you used to go to school. You're not seeing your friends. And that was kind of how the disciples felt. Things were not the way it used to be, but they went back to something they knew, and that's where Jesus met them, doing something they were good at, something they were familiar with, and doing that together. And so think about some things that you're really good at, some things that you're familiar with, and maybe do some of those things, and in that you might find Jesus present with you. Let us close in prayer. And you can repeat after me. Creator God, help us to see you in the things we do every day, in the familiar faces around us, in the new ways we gather as community. Help us remember we are all part of your family, even when we are separate from one another. And we all say together, Amen. We'll continue this story from the Gospel of John chapter 21 next week. So if you want to read ahead and guess where the next location might be, you can.